A dramatic highway crash caught on video. A Northwood home sustained major fire damage. And the Humane Society shelter bursting at the seams. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Well, another terrifying highway incident in the Northwest has been caught on video. A crash between two pickup trucks happened on Saturday along the highway bypass outside Kenora. The dashcam also caught a perfect example of distracted driving. Luckily, in this case, all three occupants involved suffered only minor bumps and bruises. But as Courtney Rutherford tells us, the number of accidents caused by distracted driving continues to grow.
It's a common scene played out across northwestern Ontario. Thousands of motorists traveling down Highway 17 every single day until something like this happens.
We hit the brakes. If we hadn't, we would have ended up hitting his door and probably killing him. I was afraid that the car behind me was going to pile into the back of us, but when we everything calmed down, the cab was full of smoke from the the electrical shorting out and the airbags going off.
62-year-old Sioux Lookout resident Ralph Ireland and his wife Ifka were traveling back from Winnipeg at the time of the accident. According to a screenshot of the crash, it shows the driver that pulled out onto the highway was talking on his cell phone. He's since been charged with failure to yield. However, the Ontario Provincial Police are investigating the matter now that they have this video, and further charges could be laid.
It's just further information related to the incident. We would be speaking to witnesses who observed the collision the day of. We would be speaking to the two drivers that were involved in the collision, and now with that video recording, we'll be dealing with that as well.
In 2013, OPP responded to 78 fatal accidents caused by distracted driving in Ontario, and 4 of those were in northwestern Ontario. That means it's now in the #1 spot ahead of impaired driving, which caused 57 fatal collisions in Ontario and 2 in this region. Speeding came in third with 44 fatal collisions last year, including 1 in northwestern Ontario. Meanwhile, the number of distracted driving collisions reported by Northwest Region OPP have jumped from 609 to 670 in 2013. Impaired driving collisions dropped from 107 to 79, and speeding collisions rose from 267 to 409.
It would appear that people are simply not heeding the laws in terms of not driving and when you're distracted. And we're talking, people often, they think when we say distracted driving that we're simply talking about cell phones, texting and talking on cell phones, but really anything that draws your attention away from your main task, which is driving, that is distracted driving.
The numbers over the past year have prompted the OPP to ask for the public's help with their distracted driving campaign, which runs until March 14th. And the fines for being caught behind the wheel on your cell phone are going to jump from $155 to $280 on March 18th. As for Ralph Ireland, he said he was angry when he saw that the other driver was on his cell phone, and that he hopes this serves as a lesson about distracted driving. Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
Well, it's been an unprecedented year for frozen pipes and water main breaks in the city, leaving some homeowners without any water at all. Crews are working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, just to try and keep up with all of the frozen water lines. Hundreds of calls have been coming in from homeowners whose pipes have frozen solid. It can take crews anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours to unthaw the water lines. The homeowner of this residence had been without water since Monday, but the huge number of calls for service is leaving some without water for extended periods of time.
We had a substantially colder winter than normal. 2013 we responded to and thawed 30 services. This year we have responded to well over 450 of them. Potentially a homeowner could be without water for up to 2 weeks at this time because we're behind. The crews are working diligently and as quickly as they possibly can.
Some places of the city have as much as 7 feet of frost in the ground. Already this year, there have been more than 50 water main breaks, another winter record. Typically, most breaks occur during the spring thaw, so it's unknown just how high that number will grow. A water main break at the Service Ontario building on James Street shut down the offices there today, and staff were told to work from home. It's unknown whether the building will reopen in the morning. Well, a Thunder Bay man convicted of 16 counts of uttering threats has been sentenced to 18 months in prison. 46-year-old Eric Workala sent a total of 65 threatening letters to city police, politicians, media outlets, banks, churches, the military, and individuals. Each letter included a death threat ranging from poisonings to bombings. Workala is to serve his sentence at a correctional center in southern Ontario, where he can receive psychiatric and alcohol abuse treatment. For the third time in the past week, Thunder Bay Fire Rescue were called to a blaze at a residence. At around 8 o'clock this morning, crews responded to a call for a large amount of smoke coming from a house on Ryerson Crescent. There was no risk to the surrounding homes, but the fire proved difficult for crews to extinguish as it was reportedly in the attic with limited access. The interior of the house received extensive damage, and due to the severity of the blaze, more crews needed to contain the fire.
It came in as heavy smoke showing when we pulled up, and it through the interior. They were able to do primary searches through. They found they hit some fire in the basement, but it's advanced up into the attic, probably through by the chimney. There's going to be substantial because we had to pull ceiling down inside to get access into the attic area.
No one was in the house at the time of the blaze. Fire investigators have been on scene throughout the day, but the cause is still unknown. The chief and council of the Mishkegogumang First Nation near Pickle Lake have declared a state of emergency. This comes following a tragic house fire 3 weeks ago, which took the lives of 2 adults and 2 young children. The Anishinaabe Nation says the reserve needs federal and provincial support as the residents struggle to cope with the aftershock of the tragedy. NAN officials say the widespread trauma has been compounded by a persistent shortage of services and resources. The Thunder Bay and District Humane Society is currently dealing with an overcapacity of dogs, and shelter officials are hoping families can give some of those canines a home. Also, the local society was the recipient of a very generous donation. Rochelle El-Soufi explains.
Adoption fees at the Thunder Bay and District Humane Society are currently $250, which includes all vaccinations and spray or neutering. But thanks to a recent donation of $2,000, the adoption fee is now fully covered for 8 specific dogs. Executive Director Melanie Blanchette says when the Humane Society is at overcapacity, the adoption of 8 dogs can make a huge difference. And with the full pens here, the staff has to get creative when it comes to housing the extra dogs.
So it's just a lot of making room, a lot of shuffling around, a lot of makeshift kennels, the use of our 2 dog runs in the back, just making sure that we have some dogs that are housed in our staff offices, especially the small breed ones. They're a little bit easier to manage.
Blanchette says they have approximately 20 dogs up for adoption. And fortunately, none of them have shown any signs of the parvovirus. The City of Thunder Bay's Animal Services Shelter has recently seen the virus claim the lives of 6 dogs, which has forced the shelter to go into isolation mode. Blanchette says so far it has had no effect on the Humane Society. She says they take many precautionary steps to prevent the spread of this deadly virus.
When we bring in a dog from the public, we house them in our isolation cell. And so they're monitored. They're seen by our animal care supervisor. They're looked over. We bring them into the vet at that point. They're vaccinated. They're just monitored for a few days until they're put into our general population of dogs here.
To adopt a dog at the Humane Society, there is an application and questionnaire process applicants must complete. Adoption approvals take usually between 24 to 48 hours. Rochelle El-Soufi, TBT News.
Thunder Bay police have a 40-year-old woman in custody after a stabbing on the city's north side. It happened around 10:30 last night in the Windsor Street area and sent a 35-year-old woman to the regional hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The 2 are known to each other, and alcohol is said to be a factor. The 40-year-old is charged with aggravated assault and made her first court appearance earlier today. Well, say no to bottled water and say yes to tap water. That was the message to local politicians from the Thunder Bay chapter of the Council of Canadians. The group is encouraging City Council to make Thunder Bay a blue community and join 14 other municipalities. One of the actions they're asking the city to take is to ban bottled water in municipal facilities and at municipal events. The Council of Canadians have support for the initiative from numerous local organizations. The move is also a significant issue for the Earth Care Committee. The group understands the city would have to phase out current contracts to supply bottled water in municipal facilities and at events.
And during that time, the ongoing efforts of the city to promote tap water and to make tap water more easily accessible, and we're really impressed with the efforts that have been made, that would continue on. But at this point, just looking at what has been done, Thunder Bay is more than prepared to become a blue community.
Andrew Folds is on the Earth Care Committee. He believes this is a good opportunity for the city.
Be a leader. And do we want to join a group of communities that are leaders? And considering we live on the largest freshwater lake in the world, I think taking leadership on good quality water is something that we should be doing.
Council unanimously asked for a report back from city staff on the requests. That's expected to come back to council in the summer. Shining a light on how university research touches people in their daily lives has been the focus of a province-wide debate series. The Research Matters event touched down in Thunder Bay last night. About 100 people were on hand at Fort William Historical Park, and hundreds were expected to participate online. 5 university researchers from across Ontario took part to discuss what issues matter now. Ross McKettrick is the professor of economics at the University of Guelph. He's studying how well economic development and environmental protection can work together.
The record for Ontario, at least for the past 3 or 4 decades, has been that as the economy grows and as incomes grow, our air quality in cities has actually been steadily improving, and so we are actually managing to achieve that balance.
Organizers of the What Matters Now event say people are always surprised how much university research affects their everyday lives. And over 400 students at Confederation College were stepping into some metaphorical shoes today to get a different perspective of the programs that happen around them. The Interprofessional Education Day is designed to link students in different courses to learn a broader aspect of their field. Mike Albanese reports.
Students in programs from the School of Health and Community Service area took a crash course in multiple courses today. The goal is to get students a perspective on who they will be working beside in their field and how their jobs work.
We bring our community service students and our health students together to learn about different professions. And the idea behind it is that once our students get into the workforce, they can recognize a familiar face from people in different professions, as well as get a taste and a feel for what other professions are doing.
Through the ins and outs of a regular college day, students don't generally get to visit other classes and meet their future colleagues. That's why this day is so important for students like Gabriel Picard, who has interest in bettering his knowledge on how his job can assist another.
Lots of our classes and the things we learn cross each other. So I think it was just an interesting opportunity to be able to talk to other students in other programs and see what we're learning that's similar and what we're learning that's not similar, because we'll all have jobs that interact with each other when we graduate.
Not only does this day help students get to know people they probably will work with in the future, it also opens their eyes to how difficult someone's job might be and eliminates some stigmas about a profession, like how Vanessa D'Agostino found out that nurses do more work and training than she thought.
Knowing they do a lot more than what you would think. Like the nursing students here, they practice on mannequins, and they're so real, and they get a lot of work done. And my program, medical lab assisting, we practice on each other. So I don't know, it's really cool.
Specific connections between programs like paramedics and nurses, firefighters and police, and child and youth workers with social workers were formed to begin the bond early between the workers and their careers. Mike Albanese, TBT News.
Well, turning to weather now, clocks spring ahead an hour this weekend, but you wouldn't know it by being outside today. Would you feeling?
Well, the temperature certainly wasn't supporting the notion that spring is in the air. After having a couple days with a nice, gentle warm-up, things dropped a notch or two. -15 was our high today, and with the wind chill, felt like -24. And that's because of the winds off the lake from the east. Even though they weren't strong winds, it was definitely a cold wind. Take a look at what's happening. We do have precipitation to the south, but you can see that pocket of snow moving in from Saskatchewan through Manitoba, and it is heading our way. Right now, we've got just a fair amount of cloud cover. Temperatures don't look too bad to the west, -8 for Dryden, Kenora, Red Lake, -6 for Fort Frances. Unfortunately, wind chills are still ranging from about -14 to -17 to the west. In the eastern portion of northwestern Ontario, well, we've got Greenstone at -13, Marathon -17, Sault Ste. Marie -12 with a fair amount of sunshine. But again, wind chills are making it feel a little bit cooler than that. In the city of Thunder Bay tonight, we are going to drop down to a low of -21. Wind chill will feel like -32 to start, but we are going to see a couple of centimeters of snow overnight, probably later in the more early morning hours. But with that snow are going to come the warmer temperatures. So whereas we usually hit our low for the night in the pre-dawn hours, it's actually going to start to warm up as we head towards morning. And that's with it a fair amount of snowfall and a warm front to follow. So if we get through a little bit of snow in the region, then we're going to see a real warm up in temperatures. Not to say that tomorrow won't be practically seasonal to begin with, but I'll have more details on the real numbers that you're going to have to work with. It's later on in the news hour.
Thanks, Fiona. More details today in the ever-changing situation in Ukraine. Details when we return.
We're here to tell them that we are against any interference in the affairs of our state, she says.
An international observer force is on its way to Crimea in response to a request from Ukraine. It's made up of 35 unarmed military personnel from 18 nations, including Canada. The mission will have a broad mandate, but a main goal of preventing military incursion and encouraging a political solution. Now, Ayad reports.
It may be a tussle of world powers, but it is here, on the ground, that tussle plays out. So, even with just word, Western observers are coming, a taste of how they will be received. For them, the mission is bald-faced foreign interference. We're here to tell them that we are against any interference in the affairs of our state, she says. That same intolerance, specifically for Western intervention, also abruptly ended a UN representative's mission here. Gunmen demanded Robert Seri leave, apparently blockading him briefly at this cafe. A local official says Seri later left for the airport. The UN had hoped he could report on the situation on the ground.
We regret deeply if this is not made possible because of action of this type, which should be seriously condemned.
This is a country divided on what is outside intervention, who is allowed to intervene. Many in Crimea welcome the Russian presence here, others don't.
Sir, could you take a moment to speak to the foreign press,
But
please?
knowing the risks of looking out, they've started to look to each other. Here, Tatar Muslims from Russia visiting Tatars from Crimea who oppose Russian military intervention. They say they could act as a local bridge for a wide international divide. This situation will resolve itself with no bloodshed, says Rustam Minikhanov, the Russian representative. Together, we can dissipate the storm clouds that have gathered, he says, and join the Russians and Ukrainians. Still, those military observers, including 2 Canadians, are expected here shortly. Their hope is to help defuse the situation. But the reality on the ground is, it may not be that simple. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Simferopol, Ukraine.
A series of high-level talks took place in Paris today, all with the goal of ending the conflict in Ukraine. But the early outcome, most agreed, was not optimistic. Susan Ormiston explains.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on a dash to Paris today, looking for an elusive diplomatic breakthrough. Early words from Russia's foreign minister meeting in Spain this morning were not encouraging. Asked directly, will Russia order troops out of Crimea? Sergei Lavrov repeated, they're not Russian forces.
Что подразумевается под пророссийскими силами? Если это силы самообороны, которые были созданы жителями Крыма, то мы им приказа не даем, они от нас приказов не получают.
Lavrov and Kerry met briefly at the Paris meeting. Lavrov departed saying talks will continue. Kerry reiterated Russia's responsibility.
Russia made a choice, and we have clearly stated that we believe it is the wrong choice. That is the choice to move troops into Crimea. Russia can now choose to de-escalate this situation.
While in Brussels, the Secretary General announced NATO was reviewing its entire relationship with Russia.
These steps send a clear message. Russia's actions have consequences.
Asked if the crisis could expedite Ukraine's membership to NATO.
It's for the Ukrainians to decide.
While diplomats stir the pot, Ukrainians are trying to avoid war and keep from going bankrupt. Today, Parliament got word of a multi-billion-dollar aid package from the European Union. Badly needed, according to the Economic Development Minister. How would you describe the economic challenge of this country right now?
Horrendous, in one word. If you take all these things, or at least 2 these things together, the external threat, somewhat internal disintegration, as there will be 3 things, and economic issues, this is probably one of the biggest crises in Ukrainian history.
Winter is holding its icy grip on Kiev as Russia holds Ukraine hostage in Crimea, with no exit plan in sight yet. Tomorrow, more diplomatic pressure. The European Union has set a deadline of Thursday for Russia to withdraw the troops from Crimea or face economic sanctions. Moscow said today if those sanctions are applied, it will seize foreign assets inside Russia. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Kiev.
An apology today from Canada's Defence Minister. He admitted a government-issued check for 1 cent to the family of a dead soldier was a mistake. Corporal Justin Stark took his own life after returning from Afghanistan. And as Michelle Chung tells us, his family is hoping the humiliating bureaucratic screw-up doesn't happen to another grieving family.
It was this check that brought more pain to Corporal Justin Stark's mother. A final check for a soldier, a check for 1 cent.
To say that she was emotionally torn by that and it kind of ripped her heart out of her chest would be an understatement.
The 22-year-old returned from a 7-month tour of Afghanistan in 2011. Soon after that, Stark committed suicide at the armories in Hamilton. Family friend Kevin Ellis says 2.5 years later, Stark's mother visits her son's grave every day and has endured several tribunals to determine whether his death was related to his life as a soldier. Ellis says no one from the government has reached out to her since she received the check.
There should be something in place that would set up the red flag saying, hey, let's take a look at this. You know, why is this check going out for 1 cent? You know, and then something as simple as a phone call.
Hamilton MP Wayne Marsden agrees.
It's not that onerous to double check everything before it goes out. And if it's done automatically by computer, if the process is put in place, then it could prevent this.
The 1 cent check is getting buzz from across the country today.
It's a slap in the face to those, to the family.
I cannot imagine that for a family.
It's just wrong and unacceptable, frankly, as a nation.
Scott Maxwell is the executive director of Wounded Warriors, a nonprofit organization that helps returning soldiers and their families. He says this incident demonstrates that Canada isn't treating veterans and their families with enough compassion.
Are they being looked after sufficiently? And I think that, you know, the fact that instances like this can still happen raises to me that much more work needs to be done.
Stark's mother isn't looking for an apology. She just wants to make sure that this doesn't happen to another family. The Minister of National Defence said today he'll be apologizing to Stark's mother tomorrow and that his department will make sure this doesn't happen again. Michelle Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Grain farmers are in crisis. Railways aren't getting their crops to port, and there doesn't seem to be an easy solution. Julie Van Dusen reports.
It's been a bumper crop this year for grain farmers. That's the good news. The bad news, they can't get their crops to market. Dozens of ships are sitting empty in BC ports. Countries are turning to other suppliers. Farmers are losing millions.
And to compensate farmers for their losses.
But today, the government offered no clear solution.
That's why we continue to have those discussions with a number of people in the whole supply chain, Mr. Speaker. We continue to look at all options before us.
Conservative MPs are frustrated too. Alberta Tory Leon Benoit is a farmer. Like most prairie farmers, his grain is also piling up.
It's a huge problem. It's not only in bins. I personally have grain sitting out in temporary storage on the ground.
Farmers are really upset, quite frankly. You know, the grain's not moving. We're not selling to Japan. We're losing customers. The grain prices are down.
Rail companies CN and CP blame the backlog on this year's extremely cold winter, saying it forces them to run shorter trains for safety reasons. Also, oil shipment by rail has skyrocketed. Malcolm Allen points out that CN and CP have a monopoly, and the government has to crack down on them.
Well, it can start out with a number of things. It can actually fine them and make sure that there's a penalty.
Critics say this backlog is made much worse since the government sidelined the wheat board 2 years ago.
It's all fallen apart. It's the wild, wild west.
Pat Martin says the wheat board would not have let this backlog happen.
It used to be that the CWB, with the backing of the federal government, could call up the railroads and say, you know, we need 10,000 cars and we need them now, and it would happen.
A lot of baloney, quite frankly.
Okay.
In fact, I've had farmers tell me that, in fact, since the wheat board is gone, they've been able to move grain better until this record crop.
So far, the government hasn't said what options it's considering. Critics say the situation is dire for farmers who can't sell their crops and who need Ottawa's help right now. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, it's official. Quebecers head to the polls April 7th, and the outcome could decide whether controversial measures like Quebec's proposed ban on religious symbols will become a reality. Catherine Cullen reports.
Une première ministre déterminée, une femme déterminée.
Pauline Marois says she's a woman determined to get what she wants, and that means a majority government. The Parti Québécois says there are several projects they can't get through another minority parliament. Some point to the PQ's proposed secular charter. It would ban government employees from wearing overt religious symbols. Quebecers are divided over it, but it has helped the PQ win support in some key ridings. The Parti Québécois also wants stricter laws enforcing the use of French. The opposition warns, elect a PQ majority, and what you'll get is a referendum on Quebec's independence.
It's a certainty. It's a certainty. Madame Marois is asking for a majority government. Why? To have a referendum.
This political watcher says that argument is the Liberals' best chance to win back voters.
He needs to say, well, okay, you may like the charter, but if you re-elect the PQ, these people will give you another referendum. And he's going to push that and hit on that nail, referendum all the time.
It was the economy, not sovereignty, that Marois was talking about as she kicked off the campaign today. And the PQ says there's no timetable for a referendum. But candidates say sovereignty will play some role in this campaign.
It will play the part that is appropriate. I think the Quebecers needs to have an update on the advantages of the independence of Quebec.
Now, polls have long shown that support for Quebec independence is well below the 50% mark. But one PQ candidate said today that that's just more encouragement to get out there and promote Quebec's independence. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, now let's take a look at the day's market activity. In Toronto, the TSX posted a 14-point gain to 14,304. The Dow lost 35 points to 16,360, and the Nasdaq gained 6 points to 43.57. The Canadian dollar was up half a cent to close at 90.60 cents US. Gold up $2, closing at $1,340 an ounce. And oil down nearly $2, closing at $101.45 per barrel. That's probably what everyone in offices across the city, probably across North America, have been talking about today. NHL off the ice news.
Yeah, NHL trade deadline mid-afternoon today. 18 trades, which is about the norm, but Montreal definitely short up. They got Thomas Vanek from the Islanders for a prospect and a draft pick. Matt Molson's off to the Minnesota Wild, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Other big names on the move today. The New York Rangers, they would pick up winger Martin St-Louis from Tampa Bay for Ryan Callahan and possibly 2 first-round draft picks. Los Angeles acquired Marian Gaborik from Columbus for former Leaf Matt Fratton in a second-rounder. Montreal shored up its goaltending, picking up Devin Dubnyk from Nashville for future considerations. Ottawa sent 3rd and 5th round picks to Edmonton for Alex Hemsky. Only 4 games in the NHL tonight. The idle Leafs, who didn't do anything, they're on Broadway to face the Rangers. Ottawa's in Calgary, and Anaheim awaits Montreal. Last night in Vancouver, Eddie Lack tending net for the Canucks. Only 1 goal on this one. It came from Phoenix. Shane Doan trickles it by Lack. Antoine Vermette there to take out the garbage. Coyotes take it 1-0. Next up, Holly's Jets hosting the Islanders. Extra time would be needed, Holly, to decide this one. Michael Grabner splits the D. He'll net his 12th as New York will down Winnipeg 3-2. The Jets, by the way, didn't do anything today either. And in an all-Canadian affair, it's the Oilers hosting the Senators. Alex Hemsky in his final game with Edmonton scored twice. Jordan Eberle joins the 20-goal club again as they slip by Ottawa 3-2. Your 15th-ranked Thunder Bay North Stars open up back-to-back games in Dryden with the Ice Dogs tonight. The Stars will face first-place Fort Francis later this month in a 2-game total goal series with the winner to select who they want to meet in the semifinals. And the OFSA Varsity Girls Volleyball Championships have wrapped up. The championship was captured by Orleans over Stratford in straight sets. St. Ignatius advanced to the consolation final this afternoon after eliminating Dryden this morning in 4 sets. Their opponent was a school from Sudbury. Mike Albanese has the rundown.
First set, Sudbury took a lead early, but Ignatius didn't give up, keeping the set close until the end of it, when the Falcons strung together a few points late, taking the first set 25-21 off of a hard spike by Jessica Korchak. Second set starts off roughly the same. Sudbury takes an early lead, but Ignatius would catch up, keeping it tied until the score reached 12. That's when Sudbury dug deep, taking the set by 7 points, but not after some pushback from the Falcons, keeping the ball alive at key times until it was too hot to handle. This set wraps up 25-18. Third set, Ignatius finally leading at the beginning of a set, and they roll with it. Dominating the third, they led by 11 for the majority of the set, eventually taking it by that score. It was a 25-14 crush filled with errors on Sudbury's part. The fourth set wouldn't go so clean for Ignatius. This time around, Sudbury locked in and kept their hopes alive of a win, only really slipping near the end of the set. At one point they led without any signs of slowing down, but they would only scrape by with a 25-19 set win. It's all tied up 2 sets apiece. Fifth and final set, this one is for all the marbles and only goes to 15 points, so every mistake is critical and every play is crucial at this point. After a strong start by Sudbury, they kept the pedal down, and with a well-placed ball, they beat the St. Ignatius Falcons 15-9, taking the consolation final 3-2. Mike Albanese, TBT Sports.
Thunder Bay's Jeff Curry saw his playoff hopes all but end this afternoon at the Brier and Kamloops against 3-time Canadian champ Jeff Stoughton from Manitoba. We'll pick it up. Stoughton ranked clinging to a 2-1 lead in the third. But the wily vet is hammer, and he won't miss this opportunity to pad the lead to 4-1 against the former Canadian junior champ as he hits and rolls for a couple. Off to the next end. Curry has the last rock this time. He'll make a game of it as he'll get around a Manitoba guard, and he will be money with a hit and stick for the deuce. That closes the gap to 1. It was 4-3 Manitoba, but the turning point of the match came in the 8th end. Stoughton with hammer puts this one to bed. Up 5-4. He'll play the tap, sending Curry's rock out the back for 3. Manitoba wins it 9-6. They're in third place at 6-2. Curry falls to 2-6 and is playing Jamie Cooey of the Territories. That match is now underway. And wheelchair curler Sonia Gaudette will carry the Canadian flag at the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games Friday in Sochi, Russia. Thunder Bay's Robbie Weldon will compete in Nordic skiing, and some grade 3 and 4 students received quite a treat earlier this week. They took some skating lessons from some of Canada's top Olympians. Rob Leth has the story.
When students from 20th Street Public School laced them up for their final skating lesson on Monday, they received a surprise of Olympic proportions.
I was very surprised.
Joining the regular instructors on the ice for the RBC Learn to Skate program were several Olympians who competed in Sochi, including silver medalist and world champion Patrick Chan.
It's coming back to the roots of skating and my roots, and it's kind of a full circle. You know, I came back from the Olympics and I get to experience, where it all started.
Joining Chan on the All-Star coaching staff were fellow silver medalists Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer. Their message to the kids: work hard to achieve your goals, but winning isn't everything.
I wish that I could tell a young Tessa and Scott that winning the Olympics, it doesn't change you. I think it's satisfying to achieve a personal goal and work hard, to accomplish that, but it really doesn't make you happier. It doesn't make you a different person.
Whether or not there is a future Olympian in this group of 3rd and 4th graders, the young skaters have come a long way since stepping onto the ice for their first lesson.
Some of the kids, when they first got out on the ice, could barely stand, and now they have the confidence to move about the ice on their own. So that's been great strides for some of them.
For these kids, they've met a milestone in their lives, and they finished their Learn to Skate program, and this is a great way to celebrate, just like how I'm celebrating my return from the Olympic Games.
And for the ones still finding their way, always remember:
never give up.
Spoken like a true Leaf fan. CFL news. The BC Lions have added a pair of quarterbacks, including former NFLer John Beck. They needed that depth after Buck Pierce announced his retirement earlier this week after 9 years in the league. Those who played with him say he was a warrior.
It's always cool for a player when he kind of gets to go out on his own terms. I didn't necessarily know for sure Buck was going to do it. I knew, I know he's got a good thing going in Winnipeg, and he's settled, and he's got a family there, and life is bigger than just football, so you never know what the individual is thinking. But it's good. It's good for Buck. He had a great run. I mean, you look back on a guy who played for 10 seasons, who showed up at a free agent workout a decade ago and made a career of it. And he played the game the right way.
Buck was a very good quarterback. I don't know if you would put him in the top 5, but he helped us to win a championship. He brought Winnipeg to the Grey Cup game in 2011, and you got to measure a quarterback by his successes, and I think Buck's had a lot of successes. When you look at was he willing to always sacrifice, put himself on the line? Was he willing to suck it up and be a team player? Buck was always that.
And some nice recognition for members of Lakehead's hockey team. Mike Waddell has been named an OUA West Division 2nd Team All-Star. Cody Alcock and goalie Justin McDonald were named to the All-Rookie team. The Wolves, by the way, open their best-of-3 West final in Windsor tomorrow night. Don't forget, NFL free agency begins next week on the links. The Cadillac Championship, that's a world golf event. Tiger Woods, a question mark with a bad back. PGA Tour will be in Puerto Rico for the Puerto Rican Open. Both those events go tomorrow. And the Blue Jays back on the winning track. They had lost 3 in a row, but they beat the Pittsburgh, they lost today. So they're 4-4. They lost today after winning yesterday. 6-4 was the final score. At least I got the final score right. I'm getting confused.
It's a lot of baseball.
It's got to be the middle of the week.
We're not used to baseball season
That's true,
yet.
yeah.
We forgive you.
All right. Well, tonight Survivor is back, and I'm only calling it Survivor because I still can't figure out how to say the name of the location. Give me a few weeks, and I'll be able to pronounce it properly. But with more, here's your complete lineup on Teletalk.
Tonight we've got a lot of games, manipulation, and even a murder on Global Thunder Bay. Starting at 8 on Survivor, Tony looks for an ally while others struggle with the harsh conditions. At 9 p.m., Big Brother Canada introduces 14 new house guests and 1 mystery visitor. And at 10 on Chicago PD, the unit discovers Voight's son may be involved in a recent murder. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay, we've got big deals and even bigger dreams coming true. At 8, one man's trash is another man's treasure for this father-daughter duo on Dragon's Den. And at 9 on Recipe to Riches, 4 chefs want their culinary creations on store shelves. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, it's pretty much what we have seen all winter so far. It's either very cold or we see warmer temperatures, a little bit of snow. Fiona, is there any chance that's going to change?
No, not really. We are still in winter, and we are still looking at snow, and we are still looking at some warmer temperatures, which is not necessarily a bad thing considering temperatures dropped a bit today after a couple days of warm-up. Today, we went back down a few degrees again. -15 was our high with the wind chill. Felt like -24. That's with the periods of sun, periods of cloud, a little mixed bag in the sky there today. We take a look at what's going on across the country. The rain ended earlier today in Vancouver. Now they've had periods of sun and cloud, and they're currently at 11 Celsius, which is fairly seasonal for the western portion of the country. In Edmonton, lots of cloud cover. Calgary matching Edmonton in temperatures. They're both at -15, which is a good 15 to 18 degrees below the norm for this time of year. We could still see some snow in central Alberta for tonight, though. And speaking of snow, Saskatoon currently at -12 Celsius. They're holding fairly steady from the last for the last 24 hours. They had a low of -15, so not a lot of fluctuation. But the snow has moved out. Regina currently at -11. They could see another, well, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow this evening. And Winnipeg is already seeing a little bit of the white stuff. Moved in about 3 hours ago. They're currently at -8, and they could see about 15 centimeters by tomorrow night. Now, as we move into southern Ontario, Toronto currently at -7 under mainly cloudy skies. They had a little bit of snow earlier today. Ottawa at -10, could see some snow tonight. And Quebec City, very cool and clear. They're currently at -13. In the Maritimes, well, Fredericton saw just a few clouds today. They're at -12, -16 in Charlottetown. Halifax -10 with some clouds moving in. Frigid wind chills for tonight. And for St. John's, they're currently at -12. They had some pretty gusty westerly winds up to about 60 kilometers per hour, so they too are looking at wind chills hovering around -30. Now today, the precipitation moved in from the west, and tonight we're going to start to see the beginning of it. The brunt of it will be tomorrow. Now, as you can see, the darker section, that is to the north of us, but we are right on the edge of it. So hopefully it will be pushed a little bit further north so we don't have to do all the shoveling, but there is a possibility we could see a few centimeters. That's going to move through and for the most part be gone by midday on Friday, and then we'll start to see some clearing. Tonight, along with the snow, well, -13 to -17 is pretty much the range for the most part. Wind chills, though, a little bit cooler to start. Temperatures rising towards morning and cooler as you head further eastward. Once the snow hits, things will warm up in Greenstone and Sault Ste. Marie, but they'll have to wait until tomorrow when the snow comes in, and then everybody gets to enjoy the single digits pretty much across the board. And you can see flirting even with the freezing mark in Fort Frances tomorrow. Currently in Thunder Bay, we're at -15. Wind chill makes it feel like -23 under partly cloudy skies. And tonight, a low of -21. Unfortunately, wind chill will be closer to -32. We're going to start the day at -13. Told you there'll be a little bit of warm up into the morning and possibility of some light snow, and then mostly cloudy with -5 in the afternoon. Now, the high will be -3, 2 to 4 centimeters. Thursday night could see another 2 centimeters with a low of -8. Friday, we hit the freezing mark. This is good news with some clearing, partly cloudy on Friday night, and then fairly dry, mix of cloud hovering from -6 to -2 over the next few days.
All right, thanks, Fiona.
You're welcome.
Well, we do have snow on the way, probably a good time to go outside and make a snowman. But stay with us. After the break, we're going to show you a snowman that is 15 meters tall. Well, Canadians have been doing a lot of shoveling this winter. So have Americans in the Midwest. A Minnesota farmer spent 5 weeks building this monument to winter. It started with run-of-the-mill snow clearing, and eventually turned into this giant, a 15-meter snow structure. As you can see, tourists are flocking to get a picture of it before the weather warms up. But then again, the weather might not warm up for a while, so I think people are safe.
I think that's just the disguised grain silo or something.
Yeah, well, if he needs more snow, he can have mine.
You can have yours.
Sure.
We'll donate. Offer the snow.
Hey,
donate.
sure.
Yeah, why not? I think everyone in Thunder Bay would be willing to donate their snow. We're going to recap our top story. Well, there's been another terrifying crash captured with a dash cam. Happened on Highway 1117 by Kenora. And that's all the time we have for you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.